So we started the day with the price action going up to the upside, and we have the 1 minute chart, the 1 hour chart, the daily, and the 4 hours. And from what we see here, using the 1 hour chart, the price action is getting to a resistance point, and as we can see from the 1 minute chart, is breaking through the resistance point. Now the whole idea is to look for a point whereby we can get into this trade, and that's what we are waiting for the market to pull back down to a certain level of resistance or support before we can jump into the trade. And looking at the 1 minute chart, we can see it's pulling back a little bit, but it's not enough. We want it to still come back down up to this. So we're just waiting for the sellers to come back in and bring it down, because it's hitting this resistance level right here. That's the high of the previous day, as the previous day high, and we're just waiting for the right time using the 1 minute chart to get into the market. Okay, now the sellers just pull back in, and the buyers are pushing it back up. That's why I took this trade for so let's see if it's still gonna go back up. Now this candle right here, it's a very important candle, because it's a candle that the traders, the buyers, they use to push everyone that has a stop loss at this level. So it takes them out to be able to allow the market to freely move up. As you can see, it's moving up and we are in profit. And right now the price action is getting to a point of a resistance 1. We call it the R1. There is the daily pivot, there is the R1 and the R2. That indicates resistance 1, resistance 2, and even we have R3, which is resistance 3. So here I have placed my stop loss right at this resistance level, and I'm risking a certain amount of money, which I use a mobile app called Stinui. That's STINU. That helps me to calculate the amount of stop loss that I'm willing to risk for this trade. So the sellers pushed back down a little bit the market, and the buyers came back in and they are pushing it back up. So the sellers are still strong, because if you look at the candles, it looks pretty healthy, not like this one here, which is kind of like little. So we are hoping that this will go to the upside, at least to get to the R1. Then I can take out some profit, or probably just close the trade completely. So we're still monitoring the moves. The buyers and the sellers are struggling, because if you look at this 1 minute chart, the buyers came with a healthy candle and the sellers came back in and they pushed it down with a healthy candle. The buyers came back in again and they pushed it up. So it's like a tug of war between the buyers and the sellers, and it's getting close to the R1. If you look at the top on the 1 hour chart, it's getting close to the R1. So I just closed the entire trade because I can see that there's a possibility this thing might come back down. So instead of losing what I've made so far, I decided to close the entire trade. So the first trade was a profit, and now the sellers came in and now they are pushing the market down. Now at this time it's 8 p.m. my time, New York time, and we can see that the sellers, they've started coming and the liquidity is increasing, because if you look at the candles, they are looking pretty healthy from my point of view, and the buyers are trying to push it up, but they don't have that strength to push it up. If you look at the candle, it's not that very healthy compared to the seller's candle. So they are trying to see if the buyers can push it up. And with my currency strength indicator, I can see why there is a problem in this area, why there is a tug of war, because the New Zealand dollar and the Japanese yen, they are in the same region from the currency strength indicator. Now I entered in another trade because I wasn't so sure if this was gonna go up. I entered just one standard lot and it's going against me. I have a stop loss of about $50, and this is my big account. I'm just using that to explain to the audience in the chat room about liquidity and volatility. So that's what I'm explaining here, and we can see that the sellers are increasing. You can see this red is the sellers, the blue is the buyers. So you can see that the sellers are overpowering the buyers. That's why we're seeing it dropping right now. And this is the 4-hour chart. So it's like the sellers are taking over the market. But I'm not selling this market at this point. I'm not entering this market for a sell because I'm still looking at my my daily chart, because my daily chart still indicates it's still a buyer's market. Until the daily switches to a white, that's when I will know that this is a seller's market, because the black is the buyers and the white is the sellers. So it has really dropped right from its high, which is close to the R1, which is the resistant one. And from the daily chart, it looks like the buyers are still strong. You can see the candle from the 1 minute chart is still trying to push up, but it looks like the sellers from the 1 minute chart, it looks like the sellers, they've all gone. But that's why I had to enter in another trade, hoping that this will go up. So it came with a profit a little bit, and then the sellers came back in and pushed it back down, and now it's another struggle between the buyers and the sellers. So they're struggling to take control of the market. So it's been like sellers, buyers, and now the sellers came back in strong and they are pushing the market back down. Now they are pushing it to the low of the day, and they are right here at the low of the day, which is a support level. And from the daily chart, which is on my right hand side on the chart, you can see is now changing to a white. That indicates that the sellers are taking over this market. So it's no more a buyer's market, it's now becoming a seller's market. So I decided not to take this trade because it's coming to the daily pivot, because this area is very important. There's a tendency that it might get to this daily pivot and then bounce up from there. That's why I did not jump into this trade. So I was kind of like monitoring the trade to make sure that I will not be faked out of my position. So you see, if I had taken the sell, I would have been stopped out by now because of that push from the buyers. But the sellers came back in and they continue to push the market back down. So they are still pushing it down, and the buyers are coming back in again. And from my big account, I can see it's hitting a very important support level in this green area, and so it bounced up. So this is like a support level because the sellers pushed the market down, the buyers took it up, the sellers pushed it back down, and now the buyers are taking it back up. That's why I entered in 2 trades here, because the health of the candle looks strong. So this area is like a resistance area and a support area, and now the buyers are trying to push it up, but the sellers are not giving up, and they are trying to come back in again. So the sellers are trying, and at this point there was a news from New Zealand, and that news took me out from this trade. So I had my second loss for the day. So this is what happened, and this continued down, and it continued down. The sellers continued down. The news was a negative news in the inflation rate for the New Zealand dollar, and that's why the market participant are selling this market. So that's why the price action is pushing down, and sellers took over. The buyers, they are trying to take back control, but they cannot, because the candle is pretty healthy. It's very, very strong. So I decided not to get into any trade because of what I'm looking at. And from my daily chart, I can see that the sellers have taken control of the market. So this is what went down during the training session, when we had the live trade session. This is the 4th day of our training, and we will continue Tuesday, because this trade was taken on the Monday, and on Tuesday we will continue the trade. If you like it, subscribe and hit the like button. Give us a thumbs up.